Hello. So in this video, we're going to be talking about some early Irish lyric poetry, which I'm reading out of the Broadview Anthology of Medieval English Literature. So they're lyric poems. It's somewhat hard, I think, to appreciate the real sort of quality of Irish lyrics in the English translation, because in order to convey the meaning of these texts, the translators have kind of had to sacrifice the style, the rhyme scheme, which apparently, according to the editors of the Broadview, is a very complex one, blending end rhyme, where the ends of the last word of subsequent lines will rhyme, with internal rhyme, which is where usually the beginning and the end word of a line will rhyme, but something within the line itself you will have rhyme. Apparently, the early Irish bards and poets had an extremely complex approach to rhyme, and that's kind of lost in order to get some sort of clarity with the English translations. But we still get a lot of really interesting information about pre-Christian Irish Gaelic culture and the period as Christianity becomes the dominant religious force in Ireland. And you have those competing forces of Celtic paganism still very much in recent memory, but the emerging dominance of Christianity. So the first poem that I'm going to read you is very much one that's about a traditional element of Gaelic Irish culture, which was the reverence for poets. The poet, the bard, the historian, these were all kind of the same job, the praise singer, all these things, was an extremely important figure in traditional Celtic cultures. In part because these were cultures of an oral tradition. Fame was spread through praise, through having songs composed about you, whether you were a noble warrior, whether you were a ruler, whatever it was. And so the people who knew these songs, who knew these histories, were of crucial importance to the social life, the courtly life of traditional Ireland, as well as other Celtic cultures, right? But these are Irish lyrics specifically. So this one is called The First Satire. And it comes with a frame story. One time a poet came to visit King Brace. They put him in a cramped, lightless hut where there was no fire and no furniture, not even a bed. When he got up the next day, he was far from grateful, and as he walked across the yard, he said, "Sans food to fill a plate, sans milk to grow a calf, sans roof where darkness falls, sans fee for storytellers, so be Brace." Now Brace is bust, he said, and that came true the moment he said it. Brace's fortunes tanked. This was the first satire ever composed in Ireland. And so again, this is the Celtic cultures, in Celtic cultures, poets, singers, storytellers had an almost magical quality, right? They were associated with what we would now call the Fae, right? They were associated with these sort of supernatural, mystical powers. And there was some sense, not necessarily a sort of full sense in the way that this poem suggests, that they could do magic through their words. How much that was a sort of literal belief versus a kind of figurative belief, I think, is open to some debate. But clearly there was an understanding that words are powerful, And bards, poets, singers, historians have control of words, and so have control of power. So the next poem that I'll read you the whole thing. It's a bit longer, but I'll read you the whole thing. This is, I think, an excerpt from, according to the footnote here, an excerpt from the saga Tochmark Etain, or Aden, The Wooing of Edain. So Edain was a shay, or a shaith, which was the Fae, I guess. They were the sort of the magical dwellers in the Irish or Celtic underworld, which was not sort of the underworld the way we think of it, right? Not the underworld as in like hell or whatever, but the underworld as in like the natural world. And Edain was she fell in love with a human, and ended up marrying him, King of Tara. But her husband from the Shade wasn't too keen on that, so he tries to come and sort of basically win her back. And so that's what this is. A Befind in Regelim is the name of this section, or the working title of it, which is a translation of "Fair Lady, Will You Go With Me?" the first line of the section. And so this is a kind of cool one, because it gives us a stark contrast between an idealized version of pagan Ireland versus a much more restrictive conception of an emerging Christian Ireland in the 9th century. So it goes like this. And this is a monologue poem, basically, by Medir, who was Edain's underworldly husband. Fair lady, will you go with me to a land where wonder lit by stars? Our hair is like primroses, bodies like snow. There's no yours and mine there. Teeth are white there, eyebrows black. Our people thrill the eye. Each cheek is the color of foxglove. The top of each plain is purple. A blackbird's egg delights the eye. The fields of Ireland are lovely to look at, but they are as well deserted. But they might as well be deserted when you know the great land. Do you like to get drunk on Irish beer? The beer of the great land will do it faster. The land I speak of is a wonder. The young won't ever die before the old. Streams of sweet water flow gently through it. There's mead and wine for every taste. The people there are majestic, flawless. We make babies without sin or guilt. We see everyone everywhere and no one sees us. The darkness caused by Adam's sin hides us so we can't be catalogued. Woman, if you join my proud people, you'll wear gold in your hair, and I will serve you bacon, beer, and milk, or whatever drink you like, fair lady. And so again, what we're getting here, the things that are really sort of interesting are the contrasts between the glories of the other world, or the great land, this sort of embodiment of pagan Ireland, right? Good beer, sweet water, mead and wine, sin-free sex, everybody is beautiful, everything in nature is dazzling, etc., etc. Everything is great. But then we have these implicit contrasts, right? These lines, we make babies without sin or guilt, and the darkness caused by Adam's sin hides us so we can't be catalogued. Christianity here is associated with repression of people's natural sexuality. It's associated with the idea of sin being imposed on the people of Ireland, who previously didn't have that concept associated with sex and sexuality, right? And I don't know if that's actually true or not. That may just be an idealized element. But this idea of we make babies without sin or guilt is a pretty clear reference to the theological concept of original sin, right? This Christian notion that all human beings are born fallen and therefore sinful, doomed to hell without being saved by Jesus, etc., etc. It's a depressing philosophy if you look at it kind of objectively. So we've got that going on. I'm going to give you another poem here that deals with Celtic Christianity specifically, which was a distinct branch of Catholicism. Celtic Christianity, there's debate, I think, among scholars, theologians, historians about how distinct exactly Celtic Christianity was from sort of more mainstream medieval Roman Catholicism. But some of the things that Celtic Christianity prized more than many other branches of Catholicism were things like learning, monasticism, the maintenance of holy texts, right, written records, etc., etc. These kinds of things were very important to Celtic Christianity, whereas things like pilgrimages to Rome or to European holy sites were somewhat less important. It was more sort of a spiritual life of the mind type version of Catholicism, as opposed to more mainstream medieval Roman Catholicism, which was much more rooted in ritual, in church hierarchy, in obedience to ecclesiastical authority, etc., etc. So, this is called Techtorum. Again, my pronunciation is probably wrong. I apologize if it is. It's a very short lyric. Going to Rome, big effort, small profit. What that Lord you're after, you won't find him there unless you take him with you. Scorch for Rome. Yeah, but again, this is one of the things. This is one of the reasons why historians have long sort of classified Celtic Christianity as a distinct branch of Catholicism that was less connected to papal authority and much more localized, much more sort of internal turning than more traditional medieval Roman Catholicism. And then the last one out of this collection that I'm going to read you is Acher in Keith Inoch. Probably wrong again. But this is a poem dealing with a very topical issue for 9th century Ireland. The wind is wild tonight, it whips the waves' white hair, and I breathe easy, for once the Irish sea stops crawling with violent bands from Viking land. I mean, obviously, in the 9th century, the Vikings were terrorizing and trading throughout Northern Europe, including in Ireland. And yeah, sometimes the weather, sometimes the ocean, sometimes natural conditions provided a respite from the violence of the Vikings, right? And even the wildness of the weather, right? The wind is wild tonight, it whips the waves' white hair. That was preferable to the axes of the Vikings.